So I'm going to be talking about using Twitter in a few very focused ways that hopefully will help people who read Twitter more than actually tweet on Twitter. And as you'll see, 40% of Twitter users actually don't tweet; they just read. There are plenty of Twitter users tweeting. There are more than 500 million tweets a day from Twitter. But I found this statistic sort of interesting that almost half of the people who are using Twitter just use it to sort of read other people's tweets. And there are many types of lurkers. I've just mentioned a few here. There are people who are just following friends or celebrities or just kind of doing it for personal reasons. There are people who are following news, both news organizations and journalists. And then there are people who are following topics that they care about. So I'm going to talk about the last two, news and issues. When it comes to news, there are some good shortcuts to both identify news organizations that you might want to follow and also identify the journalists who work for those organizations that you may want to follow. There's a site called Muckrack, and I've put the URL up here. I'll send the deck around to people if you're interested. And that basically offers, among other things, a directory of all news organizations. And it's the major ones, but it's also, some others. You can search by drilling down, and you can also kind of do a keyword search. So as an example, the green arrow is pointing to the New York Times. If I wanted to kind of get a look at the journalists at the New York Times and consider whether I wanted to follow any of them, I would use that pull down, and it would take me to a page that is the complete page of New York Times journalists. So it's all of their more popular journalists, some of the articles that people are linking to and retweeting from the New York Times. And popularity on Twitter and I apologize if there are some people who kind of use Twitter regularly and this is a little bit redundant or repetitive, but Twitter popularity is often measured by organizations like Muckrack or just by Twitter itself and their algorithms using a number of factors. One is the number of people who follow you, but also their algorithms are kind of designed to measure the number of people who are retweeting anything that you happen to tweet, the number of people who are linking to your tweets, the number of people who are favoriting your tweets. So similar methods are used to determine who are some of the most popular New York Times journalists. And you can see that David Pogue, who has quite a large Twitter following, about 1.4 million, at least at this count, is number one. I picked Nick Kristof, who is a columnist for the Times who does a lot of reporting from Africa and other places around the world. If I wanted to learn a little bit more about him, I could go to the next page down on Muckrack and kind of get a quick bio, get a sense of the tweets that he's recently tweeted. It sounds so stupid when you use words like tweet and tweeted. And then if I wanted to click on the Twitter symbol, I could actually follow him. So what I've done is I've found a news organization, found some of the journalists at that news organization, and then decided to follow one. So that's kind of, and you can do that with any number of organizations and journalists using tools like Muckrack. So the next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is if you want to follow issues of interest to you in addition to or instead of news. And there are two ways to do that. And there are many, many ways to do that. And at the end I'll show you, some sort of tools that you can use to do that in more detail. But two simple ways to do that. This is using the Twitter web version, not any Twitter clients or any other things. One way is to do a saved search. So let's say you're interested in a particular keyword, in this case, or topic that you can sort of turn into a keyword. In this case, I used as an example ICT for D, which stands for Information and Communication Technologies for Development, which is a popular hashtag and keyword for people writing about and thinking about the use of technology in the development world and in the developing world. If you look at the arrow, the green arrow in the upper right-hand corner, I type in ICT for D and hit the search, and I get two kinds of results. I get people who are using ICT for D in a tweet or as a hashtag, and I get Twitter accounts that with the name ICT for D included in them somehow. So this is a pretty good cross-section of people who care about this topic, and you can be fairly certain we'll be tweeting about this topic, with some regularity. Once I identify this as a good search, that I like the quality of the search, I can save the search by going to the gear box in the upper right-hand corner, clicking on it, and clicking Save Search. And what that will do is that will then place the search in the search box. Anytime I click on the search box, you'll see all your saved searches kind of roll down in a pull down, and you can just go back there, or you can bookmark it as well, and kind of have a way to go and stay up to date on what's going on with that particular topic. A second way to sort of do this is to subscribe to existing Twitter lists, and I'll tell you in a second what a Twitter list was. But basically, I set up some lists and some saved searches myself to learn more about what was going on in Kenya and Nairobi from people there, or from people who were writing about it. And one person that I kind of stumbled upon is a guy whose Twitter name is White African, Eric Hersman, who I believe, from what I could gather, grew up in both the U.S. and in Nairobi, and is fairly active in the tech community in Nairobi, which is a fairly large community. So I went to his site, and I went to his page, which is called the Me page, which has on Twitter a lot of sort of personal information about you. You can see it on the top of the screen grab of Twitter to the far right, the word Me. When you click on that, it'll take you to this page, and among the things on the left is a link called Lists. Now, what are lists? Lists are a collection of Twitter accounts that a Twitter user can create by subscribing to, and that sort of presents a news feed of all of the tweets that the people you've selected are tweeting. And on some days it's fascinating and informative, and on other days it's boring and mundane and silly. Which can be fun too, but you have to kind of take the good with the bad. It really comes down to what people feel like writing about. Twitter, unfortunately, has not come up with a way to filter out the gibberish. There is some stuff that you can use to do that, which I'll show you in a minute. So I'm not going to show you how to create lists. That's something in and of itself. But this is how you find lists that you may decide you want to follow and subscribe to. So I click on his lists link, and it takes me to his list page. And he has created lists, as you can see where the green arrow is pointing, of things that he finds funny, or Twitter accounts that are funny, African technology sort of experts, crisis technology people. I'm following his African tech list. Some people build exhaustive lists, some people don't bother. So it's really depends on the person that you want to follow, and if you think that they're going to do some sort of extensive or deep list, it might be worth picking off a few of them. So when I click on his list, in the right sort of column where it says TMS Rouge, these are all the people who are tweeting that he considers technology experts in Africa. And if I want to join his list, there are two sort of in the green box items there. One says 34 members. Those are the number of Twitter accounts that he is following on his list. And then on the right it says 262 subscribers. Those are the number of people who are following his list. So I simply click on the subscribe button, and I'm done, and this list will appear in my lists column on my Twitter account. So that's a way to kind of, through interest, follow people through lists. Really then the last thing I wanted to show you were some other tools. Twitter can be informative or a distraction, and I think that basically it is what time and effort you give to it. So there are two tools that make it easier to follow Twitter, which is both good and bad in terms of how you spend your time. So one on the left is called TweetDeck, and that allows you, it used to be an application that you could put on your mobile phone, but Twitter bought the company a number of years ago and has basically just absorbed it into a website. So TweetDeck is a website that you can go to. You have to register, you give it a little information, you have to have a Twitter account, and it'll allow you to basically do everything. Create lists, post tweets. A nice feature that TweetDeck has is it will let you filter out certain terms that you're not interested in, or filter for certain terms that you're interested in. So you'll be able to find a larger percentage of the tweets, in topics of interest to you. The problem with TweetDeck is that depending on how many people you're following, it's like a slot machine. It looks like a slot machine at a casino. It's constantly rolling and constantly sort of moving up and down, and it can be somewhat distracting or a little bit sort of hard to follow at times. So I use it, mostly to create lists and to, follow some things quickly. But I try and force myself instead to use the web version of Twitter, because going to it, looking at it quickly, and then closing it is a very healthy way to look at Twitter, at least for me. And then finally, on the right side is a site called Sulia. Sulia is a site that kind of has taken lists and put them on steroids. So basically, it sucks up all lists that are created on Twitter, plus creates its own set of lists by topic. So here, I'm following on Sulia all sort of tweets and Twitter accounts related to Africa. And in that case, it's a nice sort of user interface, so it's easy to read. You can also filter it in a variety of ways. So it's a more sophisticated. There's a community of people who use Sulia, and they also, in the same way that Twitter sort of decides who to trust by the number of followers and other algorithmic factors, you as a user can also identify the sites that you trust, and this community of thousands and thousands of users helps filter out the wheat from the chaff as well. So that's sort of some overall tools that you might find interesting. Okay, so any questions, thoughts, anything along this? Was this helpful? Did I talk too fast?
I think it was very helpful. Thank you, Howard. I've always been intimidated by Twitter, and I am definitely a lurker. But I think just knowing how to organize it and keeping up an active following list is very useful. I also want to make a point that we spoke to TMS Rouge about investing in his company, and so we're very much keyed into the African tech scene.
That's great.
Yeah.